Please welcome to the show once again the legendary Ignacio Esteban. He's a retired ATF agent and an author of over 50 books now. I think it's closer to over 70. And
70, huh?
yeah, so up there, it's got Psycho Killers just released. Yeah, check that out if you love talking about serial killers or true crime. That's definitely a really good read, and it's not too long, and it's got just the right enough amount of information for you to keep going. Yeah, definitely highly recommend that book.
Thank you, Thomas, man. It's good to be on for our fourth edition, right? In
Yeah,
1 year.
yes,
Doing great,
fourth
man.
time.
Getting the seasons cranked out. Hope you keep on going with the seasons and stuff. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah,
The series is awesome. I appreciate the review. I'm glad you liked Cycle. I know you also read. I can see the post behind me, ATF Undercover,
yeah,
which I'm not sure if last time I was on the show. It's on Audible. I think I did send you one, but I think you had some
yeah,
issues opening it. I sent you another one too. But
yeah,
if anyone's out there that's in the UK market that's watching, I have so many free credits for the UK market. I can't get rid of them. So if you want to read, you want to listen to ATF Undercover, it's a little less than 2 hours. It's a good read done by a professional voice actor, Sean Milo. Shout out to him. Let me know through Thomas or reach me out on Facebook and Ignacio Esteban, and I'll give you a free credit. UK market, and even have some in the US market too. I know we tried, but we had some issue in Australia, right?
yeah, yeah. There's
But
a few issues with the Australian one.
it's more for the UK market. That's the reason why. But if for those
Yeah,
who don't know, because of Audible, if you're an author, they give you a lot of credits to pass around so people can read it, listen to it, and then hopefully they become members, and of course they start listening to more books. So it makes sense.
yeah,
So that's what I'm doing with Audible. I'm hoping to have another one out in about a month with Sean, dealing with the most dangerous crime syndics of our time, and that one should be almost 7 hours. So that's a combination of a lot between the Italian mafia, the cartels, the biker groups, yakuza, street gangs, prison gangs. So you're gonna get a little bit of everything, all my short ones together. So if you like short reads, I got short reads, medium reads, and of course the long reads too. And now Audible. Audible people really, really like listening to a lot of books, I've been told. So that's a big push. Well, I'll keep on going that way too.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, you got something for everyone. You said the short reads, the middle reads, and the long reads too, and you cover so many different topics as well. It's great.
Yeah, no, for sure. From true crime to politics to current events, and of course, I've been doing a lot of shows. So if you want to first listen to me, you can also find me on YouTube, on Rumble, and other platforms. Type in my name, look at our previous shows. We've done quite a few, and also shout out to Thomas. He's done some great shorts of me reading excerpts from my books. I think the one Bundy, really people like that a lot. If you haven't seen that one,
Yeah,
Ted Bundy and his Volkswagen Beetle. I mean, you got to check that out.
yeah,
And that might be a good way to start with Bundy, right? We can do a little
yeah,
bit of Bundy. So what Psycho Killers? Psycho Killers is a book on serial killers that I taught. Wrote about 12 of them, and I talked to the Bundys, the Dahmers, John Wayne Gacy's, others less known like Albert Fish. Talked about H. Holmes, who some thought there's a theory out there that he could have been Jack the Ripper because they think he was in London, East London, 1888, late 1888, and with his background also being a physician, they thought that maybe he could have been in, and with other things in there we could talk about that could be that's out there. I also talk about Pedro Lopez, which some people call
yeah,
the monster of the Andes. Some think he may even still be alive. Thomas was
yeah.
over 300 indigenous children he had killed, over 300, and the Colombian authorities let him out in the 90s,
That was
right?
crazy. I
And
couldn't
he
believe that.
in Ecuador, man, he only
Yeah,
got 15 years for
yeah,
killing. And the only reason why he got 15 years, I remember in the book, was because he had those mudslides and a lot of
yeah,
bodies were recovered,
yeah,
the unearthed, right? And even for killing all those children, and the way he liked to kill those children is by strangulation. That's how
yeah,
he liked to kill them. So he'll pull them away. Very, I mean, this might be a tough topic for some people to listen to, but unfortunately, that's what's out there. And I guess the lesson learned is stranger danger, and you have to protect your children. You got to be careful with them because children. And we'll talk about Bundy. Bundy had a thing for young white females,
yeah,
very similar to his girlfriend, and she was living with a serial killer for years. That's
yeah,
unbelievable. Jekyll and Hyde. You act one way, and then at night you go and you do House of Horrors. I also talk about Richard Ramirez, Joseph D'Angelo, which the original Night Stalker, and then the Night Stalker, and then also
Yeah.
internationally, Michael Kroll, the Russians. I mean, it's a global thing. It's not just an American phenomenon. It's not just in North America. It is all over the world. It's a history of mankind.
Yeah.
You know, psychopaths, sociopaths, who then all of a sudden prey on humans, and what they want to do to them is they don't have a reason to kill it. You know, like the mob. We had
Yeah.
the shows on the mafia, right? There's a reason why they kill somebody. It was for
Yeah.
business, for territory, whatever. Some of these guys, I think we talked about like MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha, or some Sicario. They're just bloodthirsty,
Yeah.
right? And they like it and they enjoy it, and they really sadistic that way. And what triggers them? I found that interesting there. Some are made that way, psychopaths, and or born that way, and some are made that way.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna jump a little quickly here and just give a quick story here on Richard Ramirez and how he became the way he became, because he became a prolific killer in Los Angeles and in the 80s, right? So we're looking at LA in the 80s. He grew up in the 70s, and he had a cousin who was a decorated Vietnam War beret, right? Out of the war. He was a decorated veteran of the war. But he was sick. He would kill a lot of Vietnamese girls. He would dismember them, decapitate them, and kill them. And he would take Polaroids. So you have this guy who's fighting out there for this country, for the U.S. Army in Vietnam, but he's doing House of Horrors. He fights, he kills, and that night he kills a lot of Vietnamese girls. And I think his death toll was enormous, but nothing happens to him. He comes back, he takes a lot of Polaroids, and he starts indoctrinating his younger cousin, which is Richard Ramirez, into being this sick kind of individual. He gets hooked up in drugs, and I have a lot of detail in the book, but I'm just giving a little overview so you can have an idea on this guy. He gets into drugs, LSD, cocaine, and he starts developing a taste because of his cousin to hurting women, right? He enjoys hurting women, doing things to women. He enjoys watching that kind of video. All that kind of stuff starts playing into him. And then little by little, he even witnesses his cousin, because he had PTSD, in a rage, kill his wife in front of him with a gun. Kills her right in front of him, right?
Yeah.
But he claims he had PTSD and he gets no time. He's acquitted because of insanity, and he goes to an institution in Texas. And later he would say that didn't faze him at all to watch his cousin kill his wife in front of him.
Yeah.
It didn't bother him. So it just led to him what he became, and he became a very sick individual that started doing a lot of bad things. He would go into people's homes. He would tie them up. He would kill them, until a pattern breaks out. Until eventually, he almost got killed one time, which is an interesting story I have in my book. He had been doing this for years. He was already known the Night Stalker. People knew, and he was smart because he would like to prey just like the one before him, D'Angelo, middle class homes, people that didn't have. And I always tell people, always try to have good lighting around your house at night. Try to close your windows, right? A lot of people like to sleep with the windows open, very dark. What you're making it easy for serial killers, robbers, or anybody else to try to come in your house. This is somebody who's law enforcement. I always try. I mean, obviously, if anybody can afford security, right? Security cameras or security detection, that's ideal. I mean, fortify your home as much as you can. Learn from what these guys say, what they look for. And I do a show with William Steele. Shout out to Bill. He also used to do go into do burglaries and stuff people's homes, and what he looked for. And he tells you soft targets. Don't be a soft target.
Yeah.
Don't be a soft target. Fortify your home. And they would look for people like that. Maybe single women by themselves, no dogs. Even if you don't have a dog, at least in America, I'm not sure in Australia, Thomas, put signs around your house that say you have bad dog, right?
Yeah.
Get people to think twice. Maybe leave a bowl somewhere, right? They're not sure, a
Yeah.
big bowl, right? With a big toy. They think, oh man, this might be a big dog here or something.
Yeah.
Or a silent one. That's the one Rottweiler. Maybe they have a big Rottweiler who's nice and silent, and it comes out of the woodworks and scared. All those things
Yeah.
you got to play in, because that plays inside. And I've talked to a lot of people in my business. They don't like that kind of stuff. Or put signs that you have association with maybe the Police Benevolent Society, right?
Yeah.
You can, so you have friends in policing. All that stuff there you have to do. It's all psychology with these people. Keep away from your house. Because the
Yeah.
one that has nothing, that's just dark, right? Windows open. Come on, man. That's just asking for
Yeah.
these monsters to come in. And they do. And if you don't have any defense to protect yourself, you don't have any guns or anything, you just try to call nine. For us, it's 911. I'm not sure what the number is in Australia to call for police assistance, emergency.
Yeah, triple
Is the
zero
same thing
here.
for you, Thomas? Is it 911 also?
No, 000.
000.
Mm.
So if I don't know your response, but you're in a rural area and
Yeah,
you've got these monsters in your home, they're not going to come and save you.
yeah,
You better have some sort of protection. So this poor lady, her husband was already killed in front of her, right? He had
yeah,
tied her up. He's a monster. I'm going to tell you just one story, and then we'll skip to another one. I think you remember this one, reading the book. And she sees that they have left a shotgun under the bed, and she was tied up, but she was able to get out of the knots, and she was loose. And he had turned his back on her, and he was rummaging through her. Think that he also steals. All these guys also steal. They don't just come in and rape and kill, but they're going
yeah,
to take her things also. So he was rummaging through her jewelry and looking for stuff. She reaches for the shotgun. She's loosens up enough, thinking it's loaded. Must be the worst feeling in the world when you
yeah,
hear that goes click. It wasn't. And he gets in a rage, turns around. He has a 32 caliber Ivory Johnson, shoots her, and destroys her.
yeah,
Horrible, horrible. But she tried at least. Some don't do anything and they just get destroyed. So she went pull the shotgun up. But lesson learned. I try to keep my weapons loaded
yeah,
because you don't have much time. And a shotgun is tricky.
yeah,
Maybe a handgun. This is being a retired ATF agent speaking. Some people say a shotgun, but some people don't feel comfortable because it's kind of bulky and
yeah,
large, right? I like a handgun. It's
yeah,
quick, small. You can take it out and you just got to put rounds down
yeah,
and
yeah,
take this guy. And hopefully they get the hell out of your house. And you can see plenty of videos out there. But the Ramirez, interesting with Ramirez, I don't know if you remember how he got brought down. They end up getting a lead because a kid sees him stalk. I mean, these are nice stalkers. This guy can spend like days just stalking areas and stuff like that to see how people live, who
yeah,
came in and what time. I mean, it's scary stuff out there, and scary stuff. That's what you keep on iterating. And there's so many serial killers. I don't know if you saw in America, the one from Giglio Beach
yeah,
right here.
yeah.
And
Is that the one they
did
didn't
you see that
catch?
one? They come for years, and I think so far the death toll is 4. Maybe it's going to be higher. I don't know what the
Yeah,
number is going to be, but they're everywhere.
yeah,
There's always a guy, and he had a nice life. This guy, I think, was an accountant for a major corporation, right? I want to
yeah,
say he was in New York City, and he lived in that area. And he was killing. It happens everywhere, Thomas.
yeah,
That's my point. You don't have to be in L.A. You don't have to be in a big city. It happens everywhere, and I think that's a point. I think hopefully, look at Bundy, man. He was a
yeah,
master of that. We'll hop to Bundy in a little bit. So Ramirez doesn't realize that he is in. I know I'm skipping a little bit. He was in Tucson, and they had figured out it was him because they got a print of a car he had stolen, and it
yeah,
matched up, and they knew it was him. So they put it out there, wanted for all these killings, right? But he
yeah,
didn't know that. So he comes back to East LA, and he's at a little bodega, a little market, right? And people start pointing the finger. That's him. That's the killer. That's the killer. And he turns his head and he sees a newspaper, front page of newspaper, his picture being the Night Stalker, wanted. He freaks out, runs out of there while people are chasing him, right? Tries to carjack a vehicle with a female inside, and then a group of mob pull him out of the vehicle, and they pretty much gave him a beat down.
yeah,
And I think if they would have realized who he was, I think they would have killed him.
yeah,
And that's how the Night Stalker goes down, by
yeah.
street justice with a mob in East LA.
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
something that he
So
deserved.
yeah, yeah. And another sadistic story, the guy who's an original Night Stalker, since we're talking about the Night Stalker, because they were confused. They kind of thought the same guy because the MO around the same time.
Yeah,
But this guy, Joseph D'Angelo,
yeah, yeah,
he was, remember, he was a police officer
yeah,
in Northern California, who then graduated to being a burglar, then a serial rapist, and then a serial killer. He was in law enforcement. He would later say, like, I'm going to talk about this. He would later say that it wasn't him that did it. I forget the name he gave it. It was either Jerry or Charlie. It was Jerry or Charlie did that. I mean, Joseph couldn't do that.
yeah,
It was his alter ego that did it, not me. It was someone else. No, but it is you. Sometimes they have this crazy, insanity defenses they try to use, right, Thomas,
yeah.
and go out
Crazy.
there. It's crazy. So he would get, I'm going to tell you one quick story with him, and he would stop cold in the mid 80s. And it wasn't until like 2000, I have the date in my book, 2016, 17, 18, he would caught later because of how he was able to track his DNA, his family DNA, and pretty
Yeah.
much figure out it was him, which was fascinating. After all these years, he had stopped eventually. Right now, he's doing life imprisonment because some of the stuff was so old, but the stuff that he killed, he ended up getting life in prison. In my opinion, should have been executed. They changed his name to the Golden State Killer. So if you want to look him up, he is the Golden State Killer, the original Night Stalker that changes to the Golden State Killer. And I'll tell you one story with him. Like I did with Ramirez, he had one couple, elderly couple, and I guess he's a sick guy because of course, he had mental health issues and everything else. He's tied up the older male, right, and he puts these dishes on his back. He's just like this. He puts the dishes up in his back, and he says he's raping his wife, and he's saying, if I hear you moving, because he hasn't any other move, the dishes are going one side and another. I know you're trying to get out of it, and I'm over the other room, and I'm gonna kill your kids. What unbelievable stuff there, huh?
Crazy. Yeah, it's evil.
Crazy guy. Evil, pure evil, and that's the Golden State Killer. That's D'Angelo right there. Fascinating story. I think all these guys. Is it evil? Yes. Are they crazy? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's not normal, right? And I
No.
think most people don't want to do that to each other. That's not for no reason. I mean, this is just people who enjoy doing that, and that's
Yeah.
part of the psychology. So what triggers these guys? What happened in their background that led them to become these kind of people? D'Angelo is hard to tell what happened to him because he was a police officer.
Yeah.
He was doing good. I mean, and all of a sudden he snaps like that and goes to that dark side. I get Ramirez, right? His cousin was really effed up, messed up, right? He was a multi serial killer in Vietnam during the war, right there to fighting, and he's killing all these girls, and then he indoctrinates them. Almost like remember I talked to you about the DC snipers, Muhammad and Marvel.
Yeah.
Muhammad made Marvel a cold killer, right? An assassin. He trained him to become an assassin,
It's like the
and
same
and
sort of
he called over.
situation.
He did a great video on that too, by the way.
Yeah.
On the DC snipers and all those shorts. If you haven't seen it, folks, go check out all the shorts Thomas has done with his books. They do really good, especially on Facebook Reel. Some of those
Yeah.
numbers are really doing well. So we just keep on we're pumping them up. Hopefully, we do a few more.
Yeah,
There.
definitely. I've got a few more to do, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it'll
think we
be
mentioned Chicago crime bosses,
yeah.
right?
That's gonna be the next one, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be doing it because the one with Las Vegas Mob City did really
Yeah,
good.
that
Also,
was good.
people enjoyed that one a lot too. Talking about, and that'd be something similar, especially with Al Capone. And I think I'm going to talk a little about that when I talk a little bit about Miami's history with the mafia. I have
Yeah.
some pretty cool stories with Capone there. A lot of people don't realize. Um, Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy. That's at the beginning. Those are the first three in my book.
Yeah.
Uh, Dahmer, I know a lot of people they know that he cannibalized, he ate his victims, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
didn't realize that he was also an army veteran. He was in the U.S. Army. He was a medic. He was a medic. By the time he got into the U.S. Army, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit of his life. His home life was difficult. His parents argued a lot. They were in a bad divorce. His mom was a hypochondriac, severe depression, right? Didn't give him much attention. He had a brother. I'm trying to think. I think it was his younger brother. They were close in age, but they would obviously separate and stuff. He also had issues growing up being gay. He realized at a young age he was attracted to boys, to young boys. Also, that also acted in negatively because he was an introvert also, and he had a fascination. His dad was kind of, I think he was studying biology and chemistry, and he took into animal bones at a young age. And he would call them his fiddlesticks, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And he loved dissecting and studying animal bones. So maybe all this, and he learned how to take them apart. And he also liked also to take the bones apart and all that and play with them. Before he went to the army, he would kill an 18-year-old boy. He graduated from high school at 18, right? Just graduated. That summer he graduates. He kills a young boy. He picks up a hitchhiker. A lot of these serial killers like to pick up people who society doesn't care about, right?
Yeah.
The homeless, maybe a hitchhiker, somebody who's down and out, right? somebody that it's going to be hard to track them, especially if you're somebody who's traveling around the country and moving around. It's going to be hard to pinpoint you to that victim,
Yeah.
right? So and they understand that too. So this hitchhiker was from another state. He wanted to go to a concert. I have the exact reasons in my book, and he brings him back to the house. I think he realizes he's attracted to him, but he realizes that the victim is heterosexual. He was talking about girls he likes and everything else. So that kind of frustrates and angers him a little bit. He wants to return back to and go to the concert. He goes back to his room, gets a dumbbell while he's sitting down, clubs him, and strangles him and kills him because he wants to at age 18. So this is what triggers Dahmer. He then takes the body back, dismembers it, takes it apart completely, and starts scattering the bones in the back area. There's like open area back there, wooded area, and scatters the bones and everything else there at 18. He's also a severe alcoholic because of his parents' divorce. He starts drinking a lot, and he will continue that in the army. He would have issues in the army. A lot of people wonder, what happened in the army? Did he kill anybody else there? But he already killed somebody, right? And he covered it up. Did it happen because he was in Berlin, West Berlin, before unification of Germany, right? He's stationed out there. He's a heavy drinker. He already has that in his mind. He has all these other issues. Did he kill anybody? I don't know. There's a lot of unsolved murders out there in that time period. I always ask that question.
Yeah.
What did he do in Germany? What
Was
else
there
was he involved in?
more people? Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people wonder also about Adam Walsh, a little boy that went missing in Miami during time frame because he gets released from the military. They said enough of this, and I don't think they give him a dishonorable discharge. They just give him a discharge, and he goes to South Florida. He didn't want to return originally back to the Midwest, Ohio, Wisconsin area, right? Yeah. So he spent some time in the same time period that Adam Walsh goes missing. A lot of people ask that. I don't know if you remember, Adam Walsh was a famous case here. His father, John Walsh, I think, starts that show, America's Most Wanted.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever seen that show.
Yeah.
Years and years and years. But later his son's head is found. His remains it's also found. And I remember being small in that age in that area, probably just a little bit older than him. He was there. And remember his pictures being seen everywhere, milk cartons and all that. That's when he started all that. And a lot of people wonder if Dahmer, who was there at the same time, had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
That's out there. I just put that out there too. So then Dahmer goes back. He has to live with his grandmother. But while living with his grandmother, I think outside of Milwaukee, he goes back and he's involved in killing and bringing some of his so-called victims back and doing the same thing. Imagine that your grandmother's there and you're still killing people. It's unbelievable. And I have a lot of the stories of what happened. You read some of that. He then moves on his own. He has different odd jobs he has, but he still has a life. He's working. He's still a severe alcoholic, which is a big problem for him, but he's still killing, Jekyll and Hyde type. And then he moves to the famous Oxford apartments, right? So this would become infamous, what he does in these apartments. And after he's arrested, they will be eventually demolished. It's so much evil, so much that happened there. It's unbelievable. I think his death toll, I have the exact number, it's like 17. And a lot of them are killed in this apartment. Unlike other killers, he dismembered them and killed them, but sometimes he would eat the organs, right? He liked the heart, what have you. But he would keep them. He had a 55-gallon drum that he had soaked with the torsos in there. He had foul odor coming out of the apartment, right? It was horrible. A lot of people ask him, hey, why is that odor coming in your apartment? He'll come up with an excuse. Oh, I have an issue with the plumbing. Oh, I had an issue with my refrigerator. It spoiled food, right? He was the king of coming up with excuses why he had not. Hey, I just consumed someone last night and I got a body on the tub.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
that's crazy.
That eventually will, craziness, crazy. So this is one that's famous. This story here, he could have been stopped in 91. I have the exact date, early 1991, when he brought in a 14-year-old boy from Laos, right? 14-year-old, pretty much living in the streets, a runaway type. And he pretty much brings him back, has some drinks with him. But he starts getting more sadistic, and he starts experimenting, making his victims sex slaves. That's what he really wants. And he injected hydrochloride into his front lobal, right? He injected him, hoping to make him like some sort of slave. That's what he wanted to do. The ones he tried earlier died immediately. This one kind of went to like a stupor, asleep. He didn't die. And Dahmer said, okay, I'll leave him here and let me get some more beer because the guy was always short on beer. He'll go to the liquor store. He'll stop at the bar. So he's gone for a few hours. When he came back, he notices the boy is naked and rambling and loud at the bus station to two ladies. So he's in a panic, right? I would you imagine what is he saying? And it looks like he's bleeding from his rectum and his groin area, right? So you have that combination there. He comes up to him and he says, "Oh, he's with me. We had disagreement. He's my gay lover. He's 19. I'm going to take him back to the room. It'll be okay."
Yeah.
And he said, "No. We already called the police. They're on the way."
Yeah.
So Milwaukee PD, Milwaukee's finest, comes up and they ask them the questions, what's going on here? They didn't do an ID check to verify anything. They didn't take him to the hospital to see if he was okay, right? They had fire rescue go in there, and one of the guys from fire rescue said, well, maybe he should go, and you should find out, not take his word on it. You don't know anything about it. You don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
You don't know if he said he was 19, yeah, maybe it's a minor, maybe something else is going on here. You see the kid bleeding from his rectum, you see blood in other private places. There's something going on, and he's rambling and louse. He's not speaking English because what he was injected with, he's having a hard time talking, right? So he just rambles. So you don't know what's going on. That played in his advantage right there, because if kids saying, "Hey, this guy was trying to kill me, trying to do something else," that would have been a problem. So the police then say, "Okay, you know what? We think everything's okay. Let's escort him back to his apartment."
Yeah.
Right. And it'll be fine. And Dahmer tells him, "Hey, man, you guys have been doing a great job out here. Violence out of control. There've been so many killings. I appreciate your service. Thank you for everything you've doing in here." Is that not a problem? They open up the apartment.
Wow.
They put him in there. One of the officers smells something, right, in the room. He peeks quickly in there, according to reports, but doesn't see that he had the day before killed somebody else. The body was there, but he missed it, right? So dead body in the bedroom. This kid is about to be consumed. And they said, well, take care of him. And he said, oh, I will. Oh, I will. They close the door, injects him again, dismembers him, and devours him. Unbelievable. This close, Thomas.
Yeah, that's so many opportunities right there to catch him.
That so many of these serial killers, some of them they get caught early, yes, but many of them don't. And how he is caught is phenomenal too, which I talk about in my book. The only victim to escape Dahmer, right? Few months later, I put it in my book there. He used to approach people, and he had a thing for black males, young black males. He liked that. He's a white male. The thing with black males. He also had Asians, but that's what his preference was. That's what he targeted. And a lot of these guys who offered him $100 because they knew a lot of these guys from the street. Well, $100 to take pictures. He would say, "Hey, I'll take some Polaroids," because he bought a Polaroid, which he enjoyed them. Because afterwards, he would dismember the bodies and take pictures of them. Similar to what the other guy did in Vietnam, the same sickness. He liked to do that. He liked to do that also. That would bite him later, because that would end up catching him. So this guy here, he would come to, if you haven't seen this, you guys see the hearing when this guy is testifying against Dahmer, right? In the hearing, he's shaking and recounting everything that happens. And this is what he said. And this is one of the reports and stuff like that. He had him in the bed, and Dahmer had a nice big knife. And he said he liked to have a scene from The Exorcist 3 on, which kind of triggered him, right? When it gets to that scene, it kind of made him out there. So he had his knife out, and his heart, and he says, "I'm going to take your heart out. I'm going to eat it." So he already realized this guy was out there. And he said he had to buy time, right? But he was a little bit stronger and bigger than the average guys he used to bring in there, which were a lot frail and smaller, right? So that will come into his advantage. So he realized he has to buy time. He said he wanted to handcuff. A lot of times he would like to handcuff him from behind, and it was it. Game, lights out. He'll just cut you, kill you, and strangle you. He then said he kept on going back and forth to the bathroom. Hey, I got to go to the bathroom a lot. Buys more time. He knows he goes back to the pretty much stupor state of his, and he goes back on and gone, up and down. And once you realize he thought he was out, he made a dash for the door. Dahmer trying to grab him, but he punched him really hard in the face, knocked him back, and escaped. This time he went to again to the police, Milwaukee Police Department. But this time he said, "Listen, I got handcuffs on me. This guy was trying to kill me. He wanted to take my heart out and eat me." and eat the heart. So he said, I need to figure out what's going on here. So he brought him to the apartment, and the police officers this time, they smelled the odor, and they said, where's the key for this? Because our handcuff key doesn't work on this one. He said, oh, it's in the back room. Let me go get it. He said, no, 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 no. I'm going to get it. Instead of letting him get the key, he goes back in there. When he goes back in there, he sees all these Polaroids on the table and is of dismembered bodies in the bathtub. And he brings it back to his partner. Hey, we got a problem here. And then Dahmer realizes the gig is up.
Yeah.
And then they start noticing that there's different body parts all over. And then as he starts fighting them, wasn't much of a fight. They throw him down and handcuff him, and it's over. It is over.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the videos of them doing the search warrant and all the stuff they bring out of that apartment, it's unbelievable. The amount of skulls that were in there, body parts in the freezer that he had. When they opened the refrigerator, there were heads in there that he had just I mean, unbelievable stuff. He had those huge gallon drums with torso, all the stuff I put in the book there. Yeah. And then he pleads guilty. He's convicted. They know he has mental health issues. But a lot of people don't know how Dahmer dies. In Wisconsin, he doesn't get there's no death penalty. They did abolish the death penalty in the state of Wisconsin since like 1850. So he gets life, right? But he's with a schizophrenic, really bad, crazy guy who has a large crowbar that he sneaks in, right? And they're working, I think, cleaning a certain area, and he takes it to him. He just bashes his head. He says that Dahmer didn't scream, didn't fight, just took it. People think that Dahmer really wanted to die already. He was tired of living, and he just took the beating and he killed him. So that's how Jeffrey Dahmer dies. He dies by another crazy, killing him in state prison.
That's not like, yeah, what are the chances those two guys coming across each other?
Yeah, and how he got that crowbar in there, and how he just went to school on him. And yeah, I guess he himself was crazy. And the guy who escaped, by the way, I'm just doing a little side note here. He testified. He went homeless. He had a lot of issues. He had drug issues. Allegedly, he was recently arrested for a murder.
Wow.
Yeah, he did a few years himself. So it's amazing. Escaping Dahmer. A lot of people are trying to find out where he is. They think he might be dead. They don't know where he's at. But a lot of people will love to do a documentary on him. The man who escaped Dahmer and his craziness and his life that came after that too.
Yeah, that'd be another crazy story.
That is crazy. And you have, of course, in the other ones I talked about, Bundy, and his life is unbelievable. John Wayne Gacy. You know what John Wayne Gacy's last words were? You remember that in the book?
Yeah. Like, is it like kiss my ass or
Kiss my
something?
ass.
Yeah.
Kiss my ass. Before lethal injection in Illinois. Kiss my. Some of these guys have famous, last words, which are pretty infamous. This one, he was kiss my ass. And people who don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, the numbers he has, they say he's the most prolific in American history, over 30 something. But I think Bundy's numbers were higher. It's just they couldn't prove some of them. And at the end, he was so upset that he was going to get executed, he stopped cooperating. When he got executed in Old Sparky. This guy, Gacy's numbers, he had a thing for young teenage boys. He was married twice. His father, I guess, what made him the way he was? I guess he was young. He was gay. He liked boys. His father was a very strong military guy. Didn't like that. He's trying to, so-called cure that, right? It was really tough on him. Those are some excuses people make, I guess. And then he turns, like you said, he becomes abusive with some of these young boys. He's also known as Pogo the Clown.
Yeah.
So he is very popular, right, in the town he's in Illinois, just north of Chicago. I've got the exact name in the book there. I think it's called, let me see if I can find it right here. It's called Norwood Park Township in Illinois. I am not sure if that house is still there or not. It's a ranch house. Because some of these infamous homes are still around, by the way. This one I have to double check if that one is still around. But unlike Dahmer, who dismembered the bodies, and he still kept in the apartment complex, he would also strangle them. He had a tourniquet. He would handcuff the kids. I'll call them kids because they're 14, 15-year-olds, right? They're still full of life. They're young. And his death toll was over 30 in his house. He will bring them in, fool them with, get them drunk, and then handcuff them, and then put a tourniquet around their necks, squeeze the life out of them while sexually assaulting them and doing horrific things and tell them the whole time, "You're dying. I'm killing you. You're dying. I'm going to kill you," the whole time,
Wow.
tormenting them too. He was a sick man, sick guy, and he put that in the book. Now, the only one to escape Gacy, I don't know if you remember, and the story was his kid. He was a high school wrestler.
Yeah.
He had worked for him, right? But he goes to his house. He was trying to kill him in his house, which I thought was unbelievable that he was trying to do
Yeah.
that. He had alcohol and he handcuffed him, right? Because he had this little trick he liked to fool the kids with about, hey, let's see if he had a handcuff between his hands. They put the handcuffs on, he would take them off and then put it on them, type thing, and they couldn't take it off. And that's when he would put the tourniquet on them. He didn't put a good job on this one, and the kid was able to slide out of the handcuffs, but he's a high school wrestler. So when Gacy comes back, they start wrestling, and he turns the tables on him, pins him down, and handcuffs Gacy.
Yeah.
And according to the kid, Gacy was yelling, "I've never had anyone ever do that to me in all these years. Not only get the handcuffs off, but turning on me." And he said, "Well, you calm down. I'll take the handcuffs off you, but I'm gonna put you out the door. And I don't want you coming back here." But the kid was working for him for months. And he would go back to work with him at his construction company, work for him for another 9 months.
Wow.
But Gacy never messed with him though.
Yeah.
He just found other targets. So Gacy would like to keep these kill the kids and then keep the bodies in the house in the crawl space. And it really had a bad odor. He would do things like that, but he wouldn't dismember them. So when they eventually had the search warrant, they recovered bodies after bodies after bodies with John Wayne Gacy. He's Pogo the clown killer, because he was very popular, like Jekyll and Hyde, very popular with the community. He had this facade. He would have parties, right? He would do. He was also involved politically,
Yeah.
but then he would be involved at night or later doing these things to these kids here. He's another sick guy. Kiss my ass. His last words, huh?
Yeah.
Lethal injection. Both of them, Dahmer and Gacy, if I'm not mistaken, died the same year in 1994.
Wow.
Dahmer from the other schizophrenic, and Gacy by the courts. But he was on death row for years and years. I think since the late 70s until his execution in Illinois. Yeah, and Bundy, I remember because I was in high school. He was executed in '89. Old Sparky, right? That's in Rayford, Florida.
Yeah.
The electric chair. And Old Sparky has executed quite a few serial killers and other killers, and pretty much the worst of the worst. And now they don't have Old Sparky anymore. It's now lethal injection. I think a lot of states in America are going to lethal and getting away from. I think a few of them may have some other extreme, maybe hanging, but I think most people are going with lethal injection.
Yeah.
So Bundy is a fascinating story. He was a guy, he himself found him charismatic, attractive, right? Educated, right? He was going to law school, but he lived a dual life, man. He was a guy that enjoyed killing young females, right? Attractive females, finding them. He had that MO with that Beetle. We talked about the Beetle Volkswagen there, right? Coming in there, pretending to be on crutches at college campuses where he had studied, needs help with the school books, right? Oh, poor guy, let me help him out. Gives her a thump, takes him away, strangles him, and does really strange things, right?
Yeah.
He would have these tea parties with them with their bodies, shampoo their hair, put makeup on them, dress them up in different dresses that he would have. That's one of the things his girlfriend picked up and said, I can't justify why he has women's clothing, right? Why he has crutches. He doesn't have a limp or anything like that. Why does he have all these other knives that he doesn't never use? Why does he carry ropes around? Well, because he would carry a lot of stuff in his Volkswagen they could justify,
Yeah.
right? Stockings, a rope, just common a hammer, anything that he can use to kill somebody, he would have it there. Yeah, and eventually he would get convicted of kidnapping one of the females, posing as police officers, who didn't have the handcuff right on him, was able to get out, struggle with him, and get out of the door while he was in the car. She identified him, and he would later be convicted of that. And later they tried to, in Colorado, charge him with one of the homicides, because he would not only be in Salt Lake City, he would be in Idaho, he would go all over different places, right? And be killing. So it's hard to pin. And back then in the 70s, it wasn't like today when you have DNA evidence, you can start linking people and not the technology. It was a lot harder. And they eventually formed a task force They try to put him away and arrest him for that.
Yeah.
But this is really shocking. He didn't escape once, but twice out of a facility in Colorado. And the one that he escapes the second time really is hurt. It's the one that ends up costing him his life in Florida. He's able to crawl. He loses a lot of weight. They're able to crawl up the crawl space, get out, go to the jailer's office. We're talking about, I think it's 78, January. I have the exact date in my book, January 31st, 78, 30th, around there. There's not a lot of people. It's the holidays, right? New Year's Eve coming up. And he gets in the jailer's office, who's out for the day, not there. And it just happens to be he can fit in his clothing. Because what happens? The guy's enormous,
Yeah.
or a guy's short, or whatever. He fits in his clothing and he walks out the front door. He walks out the front door and then spends months and months and months on the run. Either he goes on buses, he steals cars, he goes on trains, he goes all over the country, ends up in Tallahassee, Florida. He's trying to get a construction job in Tallahassee, and because they're doing background checks, fingerprints, he can't do that, right? He has
Yeah.
fake IDs, so he likes the ones that you just check an identification. But if you don't follow up with fingerprints, then you don't know who you're really dealing with. That's why it's always important to always follow up. So he knew he couldn't do that. So he got triggered. He was frustrated. He was angry. He wanted to do that. And he goes to this sorority house in Florida State University, Chi Omega, right? This is famous. I think they've done movies about this, the sorority horrors. What Bundy does here becomes historical, and the way he goes into these two, in the girls, and he kills two sorority sisters horrifically. I have described in my book how he does it, right? Thumping, killing, but he also leaves his DNA behind because a lot of times he gets sexual charge out of this.
Yeah.
He does the same thing to two other women, but they survive the beating because he sees a car parked and he thinks he's being seen. So he bolts out of there, but witnesses to identify him while he leaves. And then eventually he goes to Lake City, Florida, trying to escape. And he goes to a middle school and kidnaps a little girl there and kills her also. So that's three girls he kills right there, right? Eventually he's arrested in Pensacola with a struggle by a police officer. The trial, I think, at the time was the trial of the century. It goes from Tallahassee, the venue, to Miami. A huge trial. All three networks at the time, that at that time was like ABC, NBC, CBS, were televising it. And Bundy, because he went to law school, he didn't graduate. He struggled with it in Salt Lake City. He decides to represent himself, even though the court has provided him court-appointed attorneys. But he's a narcissistic, and he enjoys being seen in the limelight and everything else that he's doing there. At the end, he's convicted, and then he is executed by old Sparky, 1989, on all convicted in Tallahassee. I mean, convicted for the murders in Tallahassee and Lake City, in Miami, and then eventually in Orlando for the young girl, and he's executed in 89. And remember, people were talking about the Bundy burgers and everything else, and that was a big thing. I think it would have been the trial of the century if it wasn't for one a little bit bigger in the 90s with OJ.
Yeah.
I trumped that one. The OJ trial trumped that one.
That was
That was
famous.
Super unbelievable. And later, I don't know if you saw that interview OJ did later. What if I did it?
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much
That's
saying
60
that
minutes
OJ couldn't do
it.
Yeah. It was someone else. Yeah, I don't remember who. OJ saying it couldn't be OJ that did it.
Yeah.
So already blaming it's on his alter ego, maybe. The good OJ wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It would be the dark OJ, right? Like D'Angelo saying, it wasn't Joseph that did that. It was Jerry or Charlie, whatever he called it. So blaming on somebody else, but the good OJ wouldn't kill his ex-wife or Ron Goldman, right, at the house, and Brentwood, right? But Sacha Cohen. I don't know if remember Sacha Cohen, the comedian.
Yeah.
You ever seen his show on Showtime when he spoofs people? You ever seen one he did on OJ?
Yeah. I haven't seen the one he done on OJ, but yeah, I've seen his show.
Oh, you gotta see that. You haven't seen it, folks. Check out what Sacha Cohen does to OJ Simpson. I think the show's like 3 years ago. He spoofed a lot of people. Unbelievable stuff. And he plays himself as a chic, really rich guy with his hot girlfriend there. And OJ Simpson really attracted her. You can tell she's a blonde also, and just like his ex-wife and everything else. And then he started talking about the stories about OJ, and OJ is very strong and powerful. He's like a lady killer. You're like a lady killer, just like that. And OJ said, "Oh, stop, man! No, stop." You got to see that, man. It is unbelievable. Sacha Cohen spoofing OJ Simpson, and OJ will get some serious time. Not for that, he got acquitted because he had the dream team, right?
Yeah.
but for what he trying to steal some stuff out of armed robbery out of Las Vegas, Nevada,
Yeah.
right? Trying to get his Heisman Trophy and other things back. He
Yeah.
got, I think, about 8, 10 years. He did state time in Nevada for that. I don't
Yeah.
know where he's at now. If he's still in Nevada, he was in Miami for a little bit, and then I think he's back in out there. But interesting how he killed two on that one. They say he got away with murder. I
Yeah.
guess if it don't fit, you must have quit.
Yeah.
Remember that, Johnny
Yeah.
Cochran?
Yeah.
Yeah, psycho killers. So I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy like, how many of those guys, I guess, had normal lives as well. Like, especially, yeah, even that John Wayne Gacy had a business or something too. Like,
Yes, he did.
like a successful one as well, I think. And yeah, just killing people on the side. That was
They,
crazy.
they, they have a thing for it. They have they,
Yeah.
they, they have a taste for it. Bloodthirsty, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
they go
definitely.
Gacy. All these guys. I mean, Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy. I mean, I'm not sure what Ramirez was doing. I'm not sure if this is what he's doing. I think he may have been living just stealing,
Yeah.
because he would steal a lot of stuff like that, and then on top of that, do everything else. Pedro Lopez, because of where he lived, in poverty, he might not have done much, but just steal also. Some of these guys, I get that kind of mentality, but those poor kids, man,
Yeah.
never had a chance in life. So if you kind of like this conversation, if you find it, hey, I want to know more about it, I have it's a good short read. And then you have bibliography there. You can go down the rabbit hole and
Yeah.
study some more and on those guys. So that's psycho killers right there for you. And of course, check out the video. I think one day on Bundy. I'll see another one. Maybe I'll do one on
Yeah.
Dahmer or Gacy or something, and
Yeah.
we'll do another cool one like that. I
We'll do
think
another
people
one.
really like that. Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about killings and stuff like that, Miami's history with the mafia. It's another book I wrote about a month ago. And since you do a lot of true crime, also, you've had some other guys who portrayed mafiosos or were mafiosos on the show.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people
Had
from The
both, yeah.
Sopranos, right? From
Yeah.
The Sopranos,
Had a few actors
you
off
have the
there and then yeah, a couple of real mafiosos.
Larry Mazza, right?
Yeah, Larry Mazza, he was on there. Um
Yeah, right.
yeah, so
So a lot of people do like the mafia, and they like the history, at least the history of it, what's going on. And people don't realize Al Capone. He died in Miami, and he had an amazing home. I'm going to give you the context. It was about 1920s, right? Capone, the outfit was at its peak, and I wrote a book about this too, Chicago crime bosses, and the rise and fall of Capone, and everything else. But this is not just Capone, but it also has to deal with South Florida. A lot of people don't realize, even though it's an open state, even though you have Trafficante family up in Tampa, a lot of these guys came into business down in Florida. And I found it fascinating because I grew up in South Florida. You think about the cartels and gangs and all that, but you didn't realize how prominent also the mafia was also in Florida.
yeah.
So Al Capone is having issues in the 1920s. He's getting a lot of pressure to get out of Chicago because it's just being pressured and pressured with the whole thing with bootlegging and violence. And his crew is pretty violent. And I'll get to how he had an alibi for the St. Valentine's Day massacre out of Miami, which is the one he caused, which is infamous ones they're posting as police officers who don't know. February 14th, 1929, I believe. I have the exact date in the book when that happened. So he's going a cross country trip. He's got to find a new home. They're pressuring him to leave Chicago, right? The police, the authorities. So he starts from California. He's trying to find places, and he thinks South Florida might be a good fit for him, right? He has a friend of his who's an attorney buy a beautiful home right in Palm Island, which is a part of the city of Miami Beach. And his address is 93 Palm Island. And it's an enormous home, 14 bedrooms, 2 stories, right on the water, beautiful. But he buys it for then, I think that I have the exact number in the book, how much he paid for it, maybe $20,000, which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
But then he pumps in another 100,000 into the property, right? And at
Wow.
the time, he ends up building the largest residential pool on that property. It's enormous. If you look at the picture, you type in 93 Palm Avenue, and you can see the picture because right now it's been changed hands many times, and it's used by I think a professional company to do photo shoots. So the home inside, you can see all the pictures how they really kept it up. It's nice. 93 Palm Avenue, Capone's old house. That's where he will end up dying. After Capone, so let's go to the San Valentine massacre. He was smart. He orders that hit, right? But he's in Miami when it happens. He has his crew go out there, and Bugsy Moran's crew, because they're rivals, right?
Yeah.
Pose as police officers, line them up against a brick wall, and they take out their Tommy guns, 45 caliber, machine guns, and he shoots them. And those who don't die, who fall to the floor, they take out the shotguns and blow their faces. And you can see all the pictures and stuff
Yeah.
out there. And Moran, who was the target, was running late, and he sees what's going on. Later, he's interviewed by the press. He said, "Who could do something like this?" And the person I know who's capable will be Al Capone.
Wow.
And at that massacre will make him public enemy number one. Right? That's what unleashes the Untouchables.
Yeah.
Elliot Ness, legacy ATF
Yeah.
agent, to go after Capone and the mafia and everything else. He is the original public enemy number one. But he had an alibi because he was in a meeting with the attorney from Miami, right, federal prosecutor or state prosecutor, and then also from New York City. So he was covered on that. But it's obviously conspiracy. He gave the order, and he had his guys do it. He never was charged with that. He would later go down for tax evasion, right,
Yeah.
and get about 10 years. He would do most of his time in Alcatraz. He had a little bit in Atlanta, in the penitentiary. They said he was a little too soft for him. They thought he was being treated too well. So they sent him to the Rock. And people who don't know what Alcatraz is, that's a little rock near San Francisco, which is almost impossible to escape. They say some people have escaped. Cold waters, San Francisco Bay, shark infested, hard to survive, hard to escape.
Yeah.
That's for sure. If you haven't looked at Alcatraz, go. I would love to take a tour of it. I've never taken a tour, but that's something I want to do is take a tour of Venture Alcatraz. I think it's a federal facility that's now you can take tours.
Yeah.
So he develops syphilis, right? He doesn't get treated properly, and the symptoms eventually deteriorate him a lot. And when he gets out, he said by the time he died in the late 40s, he had the capacity of a 12-year-old, mental capacity of a 12-year-old. That's how serious and how much damage it caused him. So pretty much he was nothing when he left Alcatraz. It ended him, and then Alpha continued to grow. So a lot of people don't know that. Al Capone dies in Miami, did a lot of business in Miami. He tried to, but at the end he even called an infamous San Valentine massacre, which at the end I think brought him down out of South Florida, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Another fascinating shooting, which I was writing about, was a lot of people don't know that FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, U.S. president, was almost 4 terms elected back in the 1930s. He was almost killed in Miami.
Wow.
And a lot of people think, a lot of people don't know that would change history, right? Because he would be the president in World War II. He was elected in 1932 over Hoover because he was very unpopular. Little history here over the Depression, how he's handling things. He thought that he wasn't doing enough to help the people who were suffering because of the Depression, only taking care of the rich elite, being blamed as a Republican, only taking care of his constituents, and not caring about the veterans and the poor that were suffering. Even Al Capone even helped with the famous soup kitchens in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So he was viewed a man of the people, even though, similar to what Escobar did, right? Building the schools and the soccer fields for those who didn't have anything, right? Or others like El Chapo would do the same thing with his people in Mexico. So he was kind of embraced that way. And Hoover wasn't very popular for his policies that he had. He said he did nothing and let the country suffer.
Yeah.
So now we're looking, FDR wins. It's February of 33. It's Bayfront Park. FDR doesn't get elected until March. Later that will change it to January. By the time he doesn't get elected until March. He just came back from Bimini from a fishing trip. He comes back and the mayor of Chicago is there greeting him because the mayor has been very strong against the mafia. He's looked very good. And the mayor might be a future running mate with FDR. So it's political, and they're having a brief conversation. There's a small guy, he's an Italian immigrant named Giuseppe Zangara, very short, 5 feet tall. He has mental health issues, no doubt about that. He gets up on this rocking folding chair like this, moving like this, unstable. He gets on top of it, and he takes out his 32 caliber revolver, Ivory Johnson. He starts shooting at the president. There's a lady that was above him, and he starts shooting his rounds. Boom, boom, like that. They start grabbing his arm, and he starts shooting like this. Yeah. The president President-elect is missed, but the mayor's hit from Chicago. Anton Cermak is his name. Anton Cermak. He has said he will die a few days later from the bullet wounds. And he told the president holds him in his arms when they go to Jackson Memorial Hospital. They're out there. And he told the president, Mr. President, I'm glad it was me and not you. Allegedly, that's his last words. One of his last words he tells the president, I'm glad it was me and not you, Mr. President.
Wow.
Well, that's in his plaque there. Some people dispute that he really said it, but it's in his plaque in Bayfront Park that he said that. Now, the mafia connection with Giuseppe Zangara is that the actual target wasn't FDR. It was the mayor. And the reason why I think Frank Nitti sent him out to shoot him, because when he was the mayor, he had his police officers do a raid in Nitti's office. And when they came in there, he allegedly gave the orders to kill him, right? Yeah. They shot him, but he didn't die. And they said, he was armed, and he tried to shoot at them. Well, the investigation showed that never happened. And those officers were fired. I think they were arrested and fired for that. And he was acquitted of that. So Nitti, allegedly, it's all out there, and I put it out there so people know, said that, you know what? Go take care of the mayor when he's in Miami.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't FDR with the target, but the mayor. That's a fascinating story there.
Yeah, I haven't heard that
contacts
one.
There.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's in my book how close FDR was being killed, and that changes history. But they don't learn from history. This is just being law enforcement, and he was in a convertible, right? How did Kennedy die?
By in the car, convertible
with the governor from Texas, right? Yeah. And history repeats itself, right? How did Reagan almost get killed by Hinckley? He was too close to him. The crowds. So they have to learn. That's why after McKinley's assassination, I'm not sure. Do you get a lot of assassinations of your leaders in Australia?
No, I don't think any.
You don't have any?
No.
It seems like it's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Between Lincoln, you had Lincoln assassination, you got Garfield, then you have McKinley. That's why they started Secret Service. They had to have a full-time protection detail. It was out of control. Yeah. And it's Roosevelt. I mean, but it's even with protection, these guys are still being killed. Yeah. I mean, FDR had protection, and he was this close to being killed. And this guy was a clown. Yeah. So you know what? Interesting case. He gets tried. How different things are. I mean, you're in Florida. He gets executed in Rayford, in electric chair. Old Sparky. Old Sparky has some big names.
Yeah.
Zangara, Bundy, Rollins, I believe. Other serial killers. Massive amount, famous, that he's infamous. I'm not going to say infamous people that have been executed in Rayford, Florida. His last words were, he was on death row, I think the shortest period anybody in history I know, 10 days. Wow. Convicted, death row in 10 days, and executed. Yeah. And his last words, because he's a little out there, was, he's Italian. I'm going to say the way I think he would have said it, that Viva Italia, push the button, I dare you, push the button. And they did.
Wow.
And they did. And they executed him. So it's crazy stories in Miami, man. I got a lot of those out there. So
I never heard that. So he's obviously fast tracked.
There's a lot of stories in there in my book about Miami and the mafia. And I talk about the connection with Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston, and how Sonny Liston has contract with the mafia, with Frank Garbo, right? Yeah. And that a lot of people think that the Cassius Clay Ali fight, Ali and Liston fight he fixed them, right? Yeah. Miami was a convention center. Ali was a nobody, up and coming. Liston was heavyweight champion of the world, heavy favorite. Patterson knocked him out twice in the first round. There's no way Liston can lose this guy. Ali already lost a fight. He was struggling. Yeah. And he goes down the 8th round. People didn't like it. And then, of course, the rematch in Lewiston, Maine, everybody thinks that was a fix pulled by the mafia, where the phantom punch, Ali, within like the first round, allegedly knocks him out. You look at it, you can look at yourself. I don't see him touching him. Yeah. And you hear Ali saying, "Sucker, no one's going to believe that I knocked you out." He just say. So, and now people think Garbo, the mafia was behind that also. So I talk a little bit about professional boxing, the mafia, the connection to South Florida, some of the most famous fights in history. Maybe they were thrown. Unfortunately, boxing does have that reputation.
Yeah, a lot of corruption.
A lot of corruption, a lot of things going on. And of course, I talked also about, I had a book about Castro and the mob
Yeah,
and the connection, the meetings with the mafia and the CIA colluding to assassinate Castro. We had Sam Giancana, Sam Trafficante coming up with ideas how to kill. And he had an FBI informant who's making the introductions, Matthew, who was actually an FBI agent who was cooperating. And it's amazing. All those meetings happening in Miami try to kill Castro. A lot of people think you go out there with Oswald, and everybody wants a conspiracy. And I'll
yeah,
transition to my book with RFK Jr., which I just wrote. If there was one, which I don't think there was, I think Oswald was acting alone, but remember, he was in the Soviet Union. He was a
yeah,
hardcore communist. He brought his wife from Russia. He did go to the Cuban embassy in Mexico City. You can indoctrinate someone because Castro was very popular, and everybody who was a communist wanted to be like Fidel Castro in the '60s, right?
yeah,
He was a charismatic figure. He was smoking cigar, larger than life, always on TV, right?
yeah,
And he has the famous newspaper from New York Times that says CIA attempted to kill Castro, right?
yeah,
And so he's showing that to everybody. He might have said to the people, "You do whatever you're going to do,"
yeah,
right? And that's could have happened. Obviously, they had the support. The communists supported whatever he did to Kennedy because Kennedy was trying to get rid of them.
yeah,
So those are interesting things. I also talk in my book with Castro, the mafia, the collusion with the CIA to kill him. Interesting times for
yeah,
sure.
definitely. That's some good books there, some good reads for people. You got a lot of
Yeah,
good
man.
topics.
Well, let me give you one more story here. This is my actually latest book that I did, and then I'll talk about one that I'm kind of working on. Did you ever hear about the Wonderland murders?
No.
There was a movie done with Val Kilmer back in 2003 or four. He's playing John Holmes. He's the big back then the big porn star from 1970s and 80s. You ever hear about
Yeah,
that?
no, I haven't heard of it.
No. So I'm thinking about. I'm talking to shout out to Wade, maybe writing a book about it and talking about if you haven't seen that murder, it's gruesome, it's brutal, has to do with organized crime, it has to do with the porn industry, John Holmes' involvement, uh, and it ends up being a rip that turned badly, where they come back and they want to kill those who ripped them off, and they're brutal in Hollywood Hills, and they thump them, kill two of the guys, and a lot of people don't know what extent was John Holmes really involved in. What was he actually the one who came back? Was he a victim? He said that he was forced to give him the information, or they would kill his family member.
Yeah,
So it's something I'm gonna do a little bit digging on and see what theories are out there with the Wonderland Avenue gang murders that happened in Hollywood Hills, California, back in early '80s. I have the date in my book, 81, 82. But Holmes would be acquitted in the trial.
wow.
He will be acquitted in the trial. So
Yeah,
that's something I'm working on. My project here. One of the books I did finish, though, skim back, would be on how the fascination people have with the Kennedys and how RFK Jr., the son of Bobby Kennedy, the son of the late president who was assassinated, Jack Kennedy,
yeah,
right, JFK, right, is now running for the highest office in the land. Right.
yeah,
I don't know if you heard about that.
yeah. I heard about that. You think he can do it?
Yeah. Well, I put in my book that's possible.
Yeah,
Who is RFK Jr.? Just maybe the next U.S. president. That's the name of my book. Who is RFK? So if you don't know much about RFK Jr., I found him fascinating. I knew a little bit about his life, but I didn't know that much about him.
yeah,
He's been through a tumultuous up and downs like you wouldn't believe to get to where he's at. Just to give you a little background about him, it took its toll on him. Obviously, death of his uncle, death of his father.
yeah,
Immensely. He was there when his father died in the hospital in California when Sirhan shot him, right, and
yeah.
and killed him. He would later talk to Sirhan years later about the shooting of his father, which I think that's
That's
amazing to
crazy.
do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's insane, and he did it for political reasons, allegedly because he didn't like his father's stance supporting Israel over Palestine. He was
yeah,
Palestinian,
yeah,
and he killed him. Um, he suffered. He said he suffered a lot. He got into drinking and drug use. He became a heroin addict, right? And he was expelled from schools, but he got his life around. Eventually, he graduated from Harvard. He went to Virginia Law School. He even went to London. He got, I think, a economics degree out of London, and he became then a very prominent environmental attorney, winning some major cases against big companies in the U.S. and around the world for polluting and doing bad things to the rivers, the land, etc. And won some major cases. Something else I didn't know that he would visit. I think it was in the mid '90s. Fidel Castro. I don't know if I would do that. Especially he's a communist dictator. He's a thug, a killer, and allegedly he had an interesting conversation with him. He's trying to convince him not to have a nuclear power plant in Cuba.
Yeah.
I don't think that went well with him, but he told him allegedly in the conversation they had a lot of drinks, smoking cigars, late night. You know how Castro likes to talk a lot, and when he starts drinking and smoking, he talks a lot of nonsense. He said, if your uncle or father wouldn't have been killed, relations with Cuba would have been a lot better. I don't think so because Kennedy was trying to get rid of him.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
I don't know what kind of nonsense Castro was talking about, but I think he forgot that he wanted him dead. He wanted him out. So I found that fascinating. Of course, my background, my family's background, especially being from Miami. It's amazing how many people wanted to see Castro, even though he was no good. And you're a killer, you're a murderer, and you oppress people. There's nothing good there's no reason to talk to you, in my view.
Yeah.
So he does very good with environmental law, but a lot of people give him a bad reputation because he didn't support the COVID vaccine, right?
Yeah.
He didn't think it was a good vaccine. He didn't say they started dubbing him an anti-vaxxer. And now he's brought up to attention on these interviews. He says, I've been fully vaccinated. My family is fully vaccinated, with all the other vaccines, even with the flu shot. But I just did not think it was a good vaccine. I'll be honest with you. I was vaccinated and I still got COVID after getting the 3 shots, the 2 and the booster. And I still got sick. I didn't go to the hospital, but I still got sick. So same with my wife. Yeah. So it's okay, maybe. But a lot of people think, why were there mandates to a vaccine you still get sick? Why were our rights? Why were we locked down? Why did we lose our civil liberties? Right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of blue states in the United States overextended over the reach. So these are issues, and he wrote a very scathing book against Anthony Fauci for a lot of things. I guess under the Trump administration, he was part of a task force to look into a lot of these things, and he was very critical of Fauci.
Wow.
I think that's fascinating. He wrote a book about that. So something to look into. See what you get your opinion about RFK Jr. He's running for office now. There's things I don't like about his politics, his views. I think we have to support Zelensky and Ukraine for their independence. He doesn't like endless wars. Well, I don't like it either. I don't like we're spending over $100 billion either.
Yeah.
But we can't have Putin take over Ukraine, right? Because of his own ambitions, right?
Yeah.
He's an evil person. He's a war criminal. Atrocities being committed. Horrible things are happening. Zelensky's standing up to them.
Yeah.
But eventually there has to be a peace brokerage. I agree with that part. I mean, this can't be an endless war going on, and we spent $1 trillion in this one also.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge cost for the United States. Well, we have other things going on. I think they've taken back most of the country. What I'm seeing on the map, obviously Crimea and Dubai's this disputed region, mispronounced that name, is a problem.
Yep.
But maybe they can broker something with maybe a UN peacekeeping force in that area. Maybe autonomize it, independent. But it has to be done because we can't continue this path, right?
Yeah.
Because if not, it's going to cost us a lot of money. We're missing out on different things. At least the United States can, and of course, NATO's protected, and maybe they have to work out something when they bring them into NATO. I don't know. So those are things I do, and some things I don't like. But he is giving Biden a handful, and he's getting very popular.
Yeah.
I think this is my opinion. I think just like what happened with Bernie Sanders in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, they use so-called super delegates and other ways to make sure the person they want, the established candidate the party likes, gets a nomination.
Yeah.
Both parties, I hate to say, don't like a Trump. They don't like someone from an outside coming in and taking the nomination.
Yeah.
I think Kennedy could go independent and really send shockwaves like Perot did, costing Bush Sr. the presidency against Clinton in '92, an incumbent president. History could repeat itself, and it would cost him everything. I also have a book called Joe Biden One and Done also. So I also do some politics, we do some true crime. Tom, we do a little bit of everything on your show.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. Do you think they're not
So
letting Ukraine into NATO now? Just because if they do, they have to get involved. Like the whole world will be involved
yeah,
straight away then.
yeah, the NATO then yeah, they want to wait to make sure that this is resolved and is clearly down the path because they deserve to be in NATO, be protected, especially if Putin's going to keep on treating
Yeah,
Ukraine like their property. And they're sovereign. They've been a sovereign nation for over 30 years.
yeah,
This is unbelievable. What they had issues in certain regions that's something they need to work out. But for Putin to go in there, and I think at the end, look what happened there with Wagner security, right? I don't know. We have
yeah.
talked about this before.
No, we haven't.
He they were like 20 miles from going taking the Kremlin
Yeah,
with 25,000 as mercenaries, and that was Putin's best friend, good friend, right? But he lost 25,000 in the Ukrainian war. He had 50,000 mercenaries. He was his guy in Africa. He was his guy in Syria. When he wants things done, he reaches out to the Wagner security group to take care of business, right?
wow.
And that's been documented for years and years and years. And I guess he had it with him. He said, "Man, I'm going to lose everything because of this crappy war, because it's so poorly planned and poorly executed." He had it, and he had it with them, and he was going to take him out. But I guess he realized, and a lot of people don't know where he's at. Some people said that he's recently reported in Africa,
Yeah,
an African
I've seen
summit.
that.
I think he's going to be in Belarus. Remember? That's why the dictator over there negotiated that deal,
Yeah,
working for him, so he can oppress his people.
yeah, yeah. It's
Unbelievable
strange.
things, man. Unbelievable times.
Yeah, yeah. It's strange how he was marching there, and then he just stopped. Went, okay, I'm not gonna do it as well. Like
Yeah,
something must have
yeah.
scared him.
I think he realized it's just going to be a bloodbath, a civil war. I don't think he wanted that.
Yeah,
But now he's back to business. But you know what? They even did a raid in his. Have you seen the video of the raid? They do. I think a week later in his apartment,
no,
they find all this money, all these weapons, all these wigs that he had because he's bald. So I guess to
yeah,
cover his looks and everything else, gold bullions. It's check that video. I haven't seen the video. Check the raid they did at Wagner Security.
wow.
Fascinating.
I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, I didn't know that was
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of books. If you like politics, folks, hey, check out my shows in YouTube. Check out my books I've done. I think I'm at 74 and counting.
Yeah,
74 and counting. So what do you think of that Wonderland murders?
yeah. I think you should. Yeah, definitely write a book on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna write
I
one on
haven't
that
heard
because
that story before, so that's pretty interesting.
Holmes, yeah, he's a huge
Yeah,
porn star
yeah,
back in the 70s and 80s. But he had everything that allegedly they said he had addiction with cocaine and other drugs, and that kind of spiraled out of control. And what
yeah,
really happened? You may never know what really happened. Was he involved in it? Was he just used? Was he forced to do it? Coerced to do it? Don't know. Prints were found. His prints were found at the murder scene. Yeah, acquitted
yeah.
though. Acquitted. So I'm gonna
That's,
do a little bit deeper dive on that one and see
yeah,
what comes
definitely.
out.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, man. All right, Thomas. Another good show,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, it's awesome. I liked it. Covered everything: serial killers, politics, the mafia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Miami Mafia. Interesting. Zangara and Giuseppe Zangara.
yeah.
Shortest stay on death row, 10 days in Rayford
Wow.
and executed like that. I
I
dare you
didn't.
do it. Push the button. Push it.
Yeah,
I dare you. They
it's
did.
funny how they fast tracked his execution.
Back then he was faster. A lot of these guys would get fast tracked back in
Yeah,
that time.
yeah,
They get executed quickly. It wasn't all these appeals. There's one guy in Florida. It was appeals. Owens, last name. Look him up. 40 years on death row. Just executed a few weeks ago.
wow. Yeah,
40 years. Last name Owens.
yeah,
40 years. Killing people in their homes. Also, sick dude. Sick
yeah.
dude.
Wow. 40
That's
years.
what I'm saying, man. Rayford, man. They've executed a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe,
there's a lot of
maybe,
crazy
maybe I'll do a book
stories.
on that. Maybe I'll do a book on Old Sparky in
Yeah,
Florida.
the chair. Just
The
call it
worst of the worst.
Sparky.
Yeah. Old Sparky. That's what they call it. The electric chair. Old Sparky.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, you should do that.
Uh-huh.
I think that'd be a good one. So
Yeah. And anybody in your audience there that wants a free book, audio book, they reach out to you, reach out to me on Facebook, Ignacio Esteban. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I have all these credits, especially if you're in the UK. If you're in the UK market, I have a ton. US a little bit less, but I can still send you some too. Feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely. I can. There's definitely some great reads, and you got a lot of good content. I'm
Yeah.
definitely a
And
fan.
and yeah, and interesting story about my life too. ATF undercover. So I
Yeah,
write about people's history. I also have an interesting life too. Talk about my background with those who don't know and see our past shows. We've done so many dealing with repeat violent. I did undercover work with repeat violent offenders, gang members, armed drug dealers, international traffickers, domestic traffickers, armed home invaders, and murder for hire cases, and a lot more stuff out there. So if you like that kind of stuff, true crime, see some of the stuff I've put out there.
definitely. I've read the ATF Undercover one. It's a great book as well.
Uh, Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I like it. I like it. Trying to get as many good reviews as I can. That helps. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, get on board and support Ignacio. He's got a lot of good reads and keep him going.
Thank you, man. Are you doing a fifth season, Thomas? I've done 4 for 4.
I'm gonna do 10 and then I'm stopping.
10 seasons. That's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
All right.
I'll do 10 total.
10 total.
Yeah.
All right. And then you do different videos.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna do something else.
Cool.
Write a
Cool
book or
beans.
something. But yeah, I'm gonna do
You should,
10,
man.
like a limited series kind of thing.
Hmm.
You're the only returning guest out of all 10 seasons, so
Oh, I like it. I appreciate it. I'll keep on coming.
yeah,
You keep on asking, I keep on coming.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's always great having you. I always say the 10th. So it's gonna be 10 seasons and you're always got the 10th episode locked in
Oh, wow.
as for you.
That's nice. Are you almost done with the fourth?
Yeah, I've just got I think so, yeah. I've probably got one more episode I've got to film for it,
One more?
but
All right, cool.
I'm just way behind on my editing. I was sick for a while, so
Oh, gotcha. I see you coughing a lot.
yeah, it's been hard to shake. I'm getting better now, so that's why,
Good
yeah,
deal. Good deal. How's the weather out there? Nice.
yeah. It's been pretty nice. It's nice and cool.
Yes.
Um,
Well, here we're having massive heat waves, unprecedented
oh, really?
in the United States. It is. Have you seen the pictures we're going on in Europe and around the world? How
Yeah.
the heat index? I was in Florida on vacation. Heat index was 110. Unprecedented. I mean,
Yeah.
you get these monsoons and heat. Virginia, it's hot, but we're not getting it, as what was happening in some parts of the country. So wait, see how a heat index hits you when you guys in the summertime. It is
Yeah.
unbelievably crazy hot, and I know Australia can get really hot too.
Yeah, especially here where I am.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
one of the hottest
Things.
parts of Australia.
Wow. Something to look forward to. It's hot, and then you get hotter.
Yeah, definitely. Huge power bill.
Sounds
But
good, Thomas.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good to talk to you again. And we'll keep in
Yeah,
touch.
man. We'll do another one, and we'll always keep in touch. And any other ideas people have for books, let me know too. I mean, that's one murder so I'm gonna look into. If you find another one you found fascinating, I do a lot of organized crime. I do a lot of books on the bikers, the one percenters, the mafia, cartels, any other interesting little niche like that. I'll be more happy to look into it and do. Like I said, my books aren't super long, so
Yeah.
people like that. And if you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, all my books are free for you. So if you're a KU subscriber, look up Ignacio Esteban. You have over 70 some books to look into.
Wow. That's good. That's a lot of books. And yeah, I've read a lot of them too, and they're great.
Sweet, man. All right, brother. Sounds good,
Thanks,
Thomas.
bro. Yeah, yeah,
All right,
good to
man.
talk to you. And yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, good, bro. All right, man. Thank
Thanks,
you.
bro.